It's time to grab your power fist and free some planets from tyranny, because today we're looking at the Crimson Fist's Liberator Strike Force. Hello and welcome back to Auspex Tactics, the strategy focused 40k channel, where we're all about getting the most out of our models on the tabletop. Today we'll be continuing in our short series on Crimson Fists. We've covered Pedro Cantor, and today we'll be looking at their unique Vigilus Detachment. Later in the week I'm thinking about doing a chapter focus on their unique strategies, followed by an example army list, so stick around if you'd like to see that. So the Liberator Strike Force then. I feel like the formation is one of the less widely appreciated, but seriously quite strong formations from the Vigilus Defiant book, and gives some of the core Primaris troops some interesting new options that could well be worth the command point investment. So let's take a look at what it can do for us. So the Crimson Fist Liberator Strike Force is a detachment that allows all Primaris characters, Intercessors, Reavers and Hellblasters to gain the Liberator Strike Force keyword if you pay one command point and they're all in the same detachment. For this price they don't gain any innate rules, but unlock the option of taking a Warlord trait, a relic and 2 stratagems. The Warlord trait is Expert Instructor, which basically gives you a reroll 1s to hit aura for any Liberator Strike Force units within 9 inches. Now this is potentially very good value indeed, provided you're mainly interested in using Intercessors, Hellblasters, Reavers and characters. This will essentially give you free Captain rerolls in an even bigger aura than the Captain would usually be able to have. You can turn any Primaris character into a sort of Captain, whether that's a Lieutenant, giving them both reroll 1s to hit and wounds, a Chaplain giving out some listeners and also these reroll 1s, a Librarian, or even an Apothecary if you fancied it. You can have this in addition to your regular Warlord, because it costs 1 command point via the Field Commander stratagem in Vigilus Defiant. I think that this is a very solid pick, particularly if you're using a Crimson Fist force that involves a lot of Intercessors, which certainly isn't a bad pick at all, due to their synergy with bolt weapons. If you are using Hellblasters as well, reroll 1s is always great for avoiding those overheats, and the 9-inch aura might make it easier to buff Reavers both in shooting and in close combat, say if they deep strike in and then charge. The main downside to having a regular Captain is of course that it doesn't affect any units that aren't on this list, say if you had some Repulsors or Thunderfire Cannons or something like that skulking around. This wouldn't help you at all with those, so it does have limitations. However, as we said, if you are using a lot of these units, then saving yourself 74 points for a Captain, just by paying 1 command point, could certainly be worth it. I like this one and could easily see it being included in competitive lists. I'm afraid the same definitely can't be said about the relic. Unfortunately it's a relic bolt pistol, so we can put it on the big pile of mostly useless relic bolt pistols that we seem to get throughout the various Space Marine supplements. To be fair to it, it isn't awful. It's strength 5, 12-inch range, AP -1, damage 2 pistol weapon called the Vengeful Arbiter, so it is a decent upgrade on your regular bolt pistol. These just aren't generally as good as the upgrades to the rifles that you can get straight out of the base Codex Space Marines, because that short range will only mean that you're likely to fire it maybe once or twice per game, compared with the rifles where you could be plugging away all game with them, and then they could maybe earn back that command point investment in more dead models. I would honestly not bother with this. There are tons of better relics out there from Codex Space Marines, and you're better off either taking one of those or saving the command points for some fun stratagems, such as the ones below. Firstly, out of the stratagems we have Heroes of Rin's World. This costs 1 command point. You select a unit to shoot with. Obviously it has to be one of these ones, so Hellblasters or Intercessors will probably be your best bets, and every roll of 6 that you roll to hit inflicts 2 hits instead of 1. Presuming that you're hitting on a 3-up, which you usually will be, then this will be basically a flat 25% increase to damage. To my knowledge, this does stack with the Crimson Fist's Bolter Augmentation rule, which means that if you fire your Intercessors with this rule active, you'll be getting 3 hits every time you roll a 6. Not too shabby at all. This one I could certainly see getting used a lot. Obviously you're going to get the more out of it the bigger unit that you have, so the max you're going to get out of this in this formation would be with a full 10-man squad of Hellblasters rapid firing into the enemy for a whole ton more plasma damage. It's certainly not terrible on Intercessors though, Imagine if you had a full Stalker bolt rifle Intercessor squad, getting this nice buff in addition to the Crimson Fists buff, and the Imperial Fist +1 to damage against vehicles trait. That's going to make a mess of virtually anything. You could even stack it with the stratagem that lets them fire at characters to guarantee some character kills. Secondly, we have Peregrines of Dawn, which also favours big units. Peregrines of Dawn is a really interesting and potentially devastating stratagem, and it only costs 1 command point. Basically, you'll use this at the end of the opponent's shooting phase, when they have targeted one of your units from the Liberator Strike Force, but not killed them all. That unit can then just fire as if it was your shooting phase. No penalties, no nothing, just a full effect shooting phase out of your unit. This is ridiculously powerful if you catch your opponent off guard with it. Say if they mistakenly just take a pot shot at your unit of 10 Hellblasters that we talked about, you could potentially unload 10 overcharged plasma shots right into a unit that was just about to make a key charge. Even if you're just getting the extra damage out of that, then that's potentially spending 1 command point for a whole ton of overcharged plasma or an absolute torrent of bolt shots. If this goes off on a decent sized unit, then it's one of the best returns on a command point that you could possibly get. Its main weakness, however, is that your opponent does have to play into your hands to do this. If they know that you have this, then they could well avoid shooting your big units, so you don't have a choice to activate this and could instead focus on wiping out a unit completely before moving on to the next. To be honest though, even this is going to screw with his shooting phase, and that might mean that the stratagem is doing good work for you, even if you're not even actually using it. So maybe just letting your opponent know that you have this could really mess up with his target priorities, and cause him to make some strange decisions, like letting big units of your Crimson Fists go entirely untouched for fear of you using this stratagem. It's a very nice option, and again it's another one that will incentivize you to take big units, so 10 Intercessors, 10 Hellblasters, to give you the maximum chance of getting a decent volley off with it. So overall, I think that the Liberator Strike Force is a powerful formation, and I think that it's actually one of the best ways that you can run Hellblasters in a competitive list at the moment. Both of those stratagems are absolutely great for Hellblasters, as is the Warlord trait for basically free captain rerolls of 1 for them, and they just all combine together to make one really nasty package with really decent offensive output. Intercessors are used a lot more in Crimson Fists and in competitive lists in general, and this formation also gives a decent buff to them too. Getting a flurry of extra shots just when you need it could be potentially very helpful, particularly stacked with other benefits that the Crimson Fists can acquire. And even getting just a flurry of bolt shots off when you wouldn't have otherwise been able to shoot in your opponent's shooting phase could provide a big swing. If you're running this formation, I would seriously consider taking 2 big units of 10, probably Intercessors or Hellblasters. I'm not personally the biggest fan of Reavers myself, but again this is a formation that does give them some solid buffs. I can totally see this being used as part of a competitive Crimson Fist army, and I'll admit I've fallen foul of Peregrines of Dawn on one surprising occasion in the past. We'll be continuing with our Crimson Fist coverage in a couple of days' time, with a short summary of some of the most powerful stratagems and options the chapter has to offer. So I look forward to seeing all of you guys then. Feel free to subscribe to Auspex Tactics if you'd like to see that, and to support me on Patreon if you're enjoying my content. I'll certainly hope to see you guys in the next video.